Hey everyone, it's Cheryl from Tinker's Cart Art. How are you guys tonight? I'm getting ready here, set up for our mermaid painting. So I will get started when you guys hop on. And remember, this is always going to be recorded. So if you can't catch it all tonight, you can get the replay tomorrow. So anyways, I'm just going to see who is watching us tonight. Got a lot of people interested in this mermaid painting. Oh, and I'm going to grab another one I wanted to show you later on too. So let's see. Everybody's getting ready. Hello, just let me know when you pop in and I will get started once we get our group here. Everybody's sort of popping in now, which is great. Say hello so I can see that you're here and make sure you can hear me and everything okay. Sometimes StreamYard will ask your permission. It's just give permission. That way I can see who you are commenting rather than just Facebook user. And I will wait till I see some comments because I want to make sure the comment section is working so that you guys can ask me questions. Hey, Janet, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, we're going to do it live on the page tonight. I thought that that's going to work better tonight for us. And here's our little mermaid. And I know we have a few other people joining. So I will probably just go over the colors first. And if anyone else is here, just let me know. How are you doing today, Janet? You have the... Hi, Linda. Listen, I told you, don't even worry. Even if you pop in just to say hi and chit-chat with us and paint it later, and you don't have to even stay the whole time. I know what it's like running around late. I had a lot of errands today. I was running around. Hi, Facebook user. I don't know who you are. I'm glad you're excited to be here. If it comes up on StreamYard, just give it the okay and I can see your name. Hey, Barbara. I'm glad you're here tonight in Cleveland. How is the weather there in Cleveland? It's really, really, really warm here. My car was 100 when I got into it today. Now we've had a big storm, so it's cooling down a little bit. And actually, I'm off to Florida on Friday, so it's kind of acclimating me to the climate. It'll probably be cooler there. So anyways, we're going to paint this mermaid tonight. Oh, good, Linda. Yeah, I know. It is a good way to like make sure you start and finish. And maybe an idea for our group is having a random paint night where people can work on different projects that they're trying to finish up, and I'm there to help you along. That might be a good idea. So I wanted to ask you guys while we're all together tonight anyways, I'm doing the calendar for July for the Cardist group. And I'm going to do a couple of live things like we usually do. I'm going to release some pre-recorded videos. And I was thinking of other things we can do live, wrapping it into Q&As and critiques and all that. But I like the idea maybe of us just having like a pajama paint night or just a paint night where we can all just bring our projects and work on it. I think it's a good idea. Yes, I'm putting it on the calendar. Another question for you guys, because you guys are the ones who show up quite a bit. Time. I do a lot of Tuesday nights. I know some of our group now are on a different time zone. We start at 7 usually, sometimes 8, which is late for them. Are you guys available to start earlier sometime? Do you want to do it afternoon or more like 5 sometimes or 6? And days of weeks that are better. So I'm formulating the calendar and I'll take feedback about if those dates and times work because I'm pretty flexible. So I can do whatever is good for you guys. All right. I'll show you my colors and we can start doing our background. And then as people pop in, they can catch up with the background. Ask me questions as you go. I'm right here watching the comments. If I'm going too fast or too slow, give me a heads up. I'm going to do the background first. So I have a little separate palette there. I've got my white and it's ultramarine Othello blue. I've thrown out some turquoise. And these colors I might try. They are those pearl metallic colors. They look like this. And I know I use those in my background. So I'm going to try that. I've got some of this. I love this Deco Art Twinkles. It's like a glitter paint. So it dries sort of clear and it leaves little bits of glitter. So it makes it a little sparkly, which is cool. Linda, that's good to know. Yeah, I just want to get a feel for the group. I did put that glitter on her. Can you see it a little bit on her mermaid tail? And did you see I glued a little jewel on her belly button? They just come on a little sticky a piece of sticky paper at Michael's and they just stick on, and it really has not budged. So that's kind of cute if you want to add a little something to her belly button there. Other colors I have, oh, I didn't get my orange out, but I have flesh colored for her face. I have some burnt sienna because I want to shade her face a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that. A little bit of red to make a little pink cheeks and her lips. White, of course, I give way too much black. You need like a teeniest bit of black just for her eyelashes. Why I have all that black, I do not know. I've got some light blue, and these colors here I use in her tail. I use a little purple, a little lime green. You could certainly mix that if you had your green and you want to mix with yellow. I just happen to have lime green. And I need some orange for her hair, and we'll be using the burnt siennas and the oranges and the reds for her hair. Oh, but you don't have to do a red-headed mermaid. Actually, whatever color you want. It's the same method, and I'll show you how I'm doing it. But if you wanted to do blonde or brown or black hair, I'll tell you the colors that you need to use for that. So let me put that palette aside a little bit. And I'm going to move my sample right here so I can see it. And I'm going to do my background. And I'm going to just do kind of a swirly background just with these colors. I don't have it planned. I just want to use these colors, and I'm just going to take my blue, a little white. You know, you guys can do your edge as you're going along too. I hate to waste time doing the edge while you guys are watching. So can you see this time I'm more swirly strokes than the X's like I usually do? I'm thinking water and I'm thinking bubbles, and so I'm just kind of swirling it. Sometimes I'm going to dip into white. Sometimes I'm dipping right into that turquoise. Sometimes just white. And so just go around and do your whole background. If you need to switch to a littler brush to do around her, go ahead. But that hair is going to kind of be free flowing, and we're going to go right out over the water. So I'm not worried about hitting it perfectly along the line. I'm going to just use the colors I have going here. And I'm going to outline her like that, but whatever you're comfortable with. So if you need to just outline it with a smaller brush, you can do that. It's not really necessary. And I'm just going to go around her little hands the best I can. And we'll paint that in with the flesh color after. I think I'm going to just go around the edge first with her, so that I can be really free on these edges without hitting my tracing. Remind me, I'm working on a different mermaid. I don't know if it'll be something you're interested in or not, but I'll show you that as we are waiting for things to dry and whatnot. I think she's really fun and whimsical. And it is mermaid season, right? And don't forget, this is all blue in here too. So, and for this, I'm just dipping in all my colors. I'm going to go back and really blend some of them in when I'm doing the outer edges. And I'll keep my eye on you here, so really feel free to ask any questions you need. This part's pretty straightforward. And remember too, if you're new with me, this always gets recorded, and you'll I'll download it later and get a link for you. Downloading the videos to the page lately has been it's taken hours and hours. So I think I'm going to more upload them to a private channel on YouTube and give you the link, and it'll be a little easier for you to watch them. I just did all into her arm with blue, and it really is part of her hair here. So you don't have to go that far up if you didn't do it yet. And I know I tend to sometimes on the tracers get very detailed. It's almost like a drawing to me after a while. So you really didn't need to trace all those little scales in, because we're really, oops, I'm going on, see, multitasking. I'm doing her hair blue again. We're going to paint this in, and I'll show you how to, with your brush, make those little scales. So you didn't have to really, have to trace those on, but it's nice to have that tracing, because that would be nice sometimes maybe to just take and trace and just do it with pen, and you could almost do it like a pen and ink or a little wash, and you'd have all those detailed lines, which would be kind of fun for a different kind of an art project. Flat or round brush. It really doesn't matter, but I think a flat or a filbert like this would get you further quicker. So you could use any kind of a synthetic flat you might have if you wanted. I like these bristle brushes. They're more for oil painting or acrylics. They're in the fine art section of the stores. It's a long handled, which is a bright, but the filbert is, you can see that it's a rounded tip. What I like about these brushes, especially when I'm doing areas like this or landscapes, is because of the stiff texture of this brush, it digs right into the nooks and crannies of the canvas. So you can certainly use your flat. You might have to dig in a little bit to get it to cover into those little nooks and crannies. Sometimes I use my chip brush too, which is like a 2-inch chip brush. You could do the big areas with that and then use a littler brush to cut in around your design. It's never really a right or wrong, unless you're doing a particular brush stroke or something. But I really do like these filberts for just filling in. You see, you don't see any of the little white bits of the canvas poking through as much as if you had that soft brush. I love the texture you get for this sometimes when you're doing grasses or oceans. And I have them in a few sizes. I have a really big one here that's a 10. I'm using the 8. I have a littler one we might use for the scales, which is a 4. You don't need a lot of those brushes, but if you have a chance and you wanted to buy a couple of brushes, they really are kind of cool. I really like them. I know Robert Simmons makes a brand. I've seen them at Michael's. And just kind of make sure it's the bristly, stiffer ones, not shaped like this, but really soft. That would be for some of your fine oil painting. I'm mostly now just wanting to cover the white of the canvas. I'm working, like I said, pretty quickly now, kind of in spirally strokes. And I don't want it to get too boring and be all the same color, so I will throw in some turquoise and sometimes white. Sometimes just the dark blue is kind of cool mixed in. I'd rather see it like this, a little painterly and different colors, rather than brushing it so much that it turns out just to be flat blue. And I do have these little sparkly paints. They show up a little, sometimes not so much, but I just wanted to pull them out since I had them, see how they would look. And I am going fast because I tend to paint fast when I'm doing certain things, backgrounds and whatnot, that I'm wanting to blend on the fly. If I was very careful and methodical and slower, this paint would be drying on me and I wouldn't get these cool little brush strokes that I'm getting. And if you do have like a little flat area of kind of blue, just throw in some white, throw in some darks. Don't blend it in too much and you get that watery kind of cool, interesting background. This is kind of a cool background for lots of projects. Hey, Kit, I'm glad you're here. Nice to see you tonight. If you're doing a still life or something and you just want not something too busy in the background, but you want something, this sort of thing is just take a few colors that you like and start putting them in, mixing them a little bit as you go. This was getting a little light, so I'll add a little dark in. And now I'm going to eyeball it. It's very blue here, kind of blah. I get a little more turquoise. And then when I go in with my white, that's kind of pretty. It's much prettier. Now, if you don't want it too painterly looking, just with your brush, you could dry your brush off and very softly just blend. You could blend that as much as you like, getting the look you like, because we're all going to paint a different painting. They're not all going to come out like mine or like yours, or if I'm painting this again, it's not going to look like my original. So just achieve a look that you like the look of. Step back from it. You're awfully close here to really get an idea of if it's right or wrong, or if you like it or not. Step back a little bit every now and then and get a feel. And now I'm just going to kind of play around with it till I get something I like. And I think it's almost where I like it already. I'm going to go in now just with some of these pearly colors. Maybe a little white and the pearl will show up a little more. It's all experimentation. It's all just for fun. We're not going to fuss about our paintings until they're done, because they're not really super duper pretty until they're all done. So we're not going to say we don't like our painting and this and that, because you will like it when you are done, I am sure. Okay, I like it busy like that. I like it with a lot of texture, some darks and lights, and I'm going to leave mine that way, but you are very welcome to, like I said, blend it, get it as smooth as you like. Maybe at the end, I might even put some of the glitter in the water too to make it, give it a little sparkle. All right, so I'm going to let it dry for a minute, and I'm going to see where you guys are at. So let me know how your background is coming. I want to know when to move on to the next few steps, but I don't want to leave you behind. So I'm going to, in the meantime, wash this brush out and give me a little idea. Are we all working along tonight, or are we watching, some of us? Just let me know. Okay. So I always take out way too much paint. So try to not be like me. I could do a few more canvases now with the colors, the amount of paint that I put out for my background. I'm going to just set that aside and just get my palette out here. Actually, you know what I think I might do is I might do my edges, because I want to give you guys a chance to get your backgrounds done. So let me do my edge and then give me a heads up. Then I'll start the body. But I might as well do this while I have all that color on my palette. Okay, you're watching. Yeah, that's sometimes nice, isn't it? You can just sit and chat with us and ask questions and get a real good preview. So when you go to watch the replay, you really, really know what you're going to jump in and do. I do that a lot of times with classes and things that I'm taking and watching. And I will have the new schedule for July out tomorrow. I know it's July 1st already. I actually have a little, I did a really cute painting today for you guys that I'm going to put out tomorrow. And if you want a preview, I'll grab it in a second. And oh yeah, Linda, don't worry. Keep tracing, do what you need to do. Even if you get your background done and we start the mermaid, you'll get an idea of what we're doing. So no worries, just take your time. And I'll show you that painting I'll release. I'm going to put our usual Zoom classes on the calendar, but I'm going to probably do a couple lives and then maybe some pre-recorded things that I can release, and then you can watch them anytime. I have so many different paintings I want to throw out there, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys. So I'm going to do little bits of recorded ones. And this one is for 4th of July, if you feel like you want to paint something for 4th of July. It would go nice with our Uncle Sam. Oh, Debbie, you're watching too. Good. That's a little less pressure, really, because I do paint a little quick and we can't, be here for too long. So it is nice to watch and then take your time with the video. Take all the time you need. You can stop and come back to it another day. It's a lot easier that way, but I do enjoy the company while I'm here. So thanks for watching. Linda, what size canvas did you decide to do? Are you doing the big 16 by 20? Alrighty. So my edges are done. I'm going to clean this brush out now for real. That makes for less cleanup later. 11 by 14. Yeah, I like the 11 by 14 or 16, 12 by 16. Is that what I usually use? I always forget that number because you have an easier time finding a place to put it. Although the 16 by 20s are striking though. Oops. So what happens when your brushes are in the water too much? Like the glue comes loose, but it'll be fine. It will be fine. Okay. Why don't I put on the flesh on her body, because it's going to have to dry and do a couple coats probably. And I want to do that. Then I'll show you the painting I'm going to release tomorrow for 4th of July. And then another idea I have for mermaids. And also, like I said, any color hair. You don't have to do the red hair like I have. I'm going to start with like a dark burnt sienna, work into a dark orange, work lighter, 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 which would work for anything. If you were doing, say, a blonde, what I would start with probably is maybe the yellow ochre color, mix a little bit with white, get some yellow in there, and just build it up to a lighter shade. If I was doing black hair, I would shade with light blue, because otherwise you're going to have gray. And when you're painting, same with little black dogs and things, you put that white in there, it just ends up looking like a little bit of gray hair. I always shade with a little purple or blue for the highlights. And brown, same thing, a dark brown to a lighter brown to a lighter brown. Same technique, same kind of strokes. Oh, and we are actually going to need this color for our starfish, so I'll get some of that out now. All right, so her features will show through when we paint the flesh on, so that's kind of cool. You don't have to trace it over or wonder where her eye is or her mouth. So I'm going to just get one coat to start. I'm using just a little flat synthetic brush. Again, whatever you're comfortable with. If you were more comfortable with outlining it with a little round brush and then filling it in, you can. I love the versatility of these flat brushes because you can get a wide stroke, but you could go on the chisel edge and get a really fine stroke as well. They're pretty versatile. Flesh color is pretty translucent. Now, if you did not have flesh colored in a jar, it's easy to mix. You can mix a little of your burnt sienna white, a teeny bit of red. You could mix it with brown if you didn't have the burnt sienna. I like to mix a lot of my colors, but I do like certain colors already mixed that saves me a little time, like the flesh or the ivory. But with your primary colors, you can pretty much mix anything. And I do have, and if anybody's new here to the Cardist group, take a look on the Facebook page to the guides, because that is going to show you the page where everything is. We paint a little color wheel there. It's a good place to start. I show you all around the page. I show you what tools you need, what brushes you need. And so if you haven't taken a look at that, take a look at that. And we'll paint around her little starfish. I hope you guys have some good music on. I have no music here. It's hard when I'm videoing for music because of the whole royalty issues with Facebook and all that business. So I hope you guys have some good music, some good playlists for painting. Now, it is a little bit, you know, you can see that blew through there a little bit because I kind of overshot it when I was painting. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I can always go back and put a few more coats of flesh colored. And if worse comes to worse, I just put a little white over that blue and then cover it with the flesh. But we'll see if we need to do that later. I'm just going to get one coat right now of flesh on her face and body. You can see I'm not being super careful around these starfish because the gold is going to cover them, and I'm still going to see the lines right through since it's that translucent. But I'm going to do a couple coats. Always let the coat underneath dry first. If you don't, you're pulling off that coat and you're not really getting anywhere at all. So let it dry first before you go and put your second and third coat. And I'm going to show you a little technique to shade and highlight her face so she's just not flat flesh colored. We're going to give some shadows and some cheeks and a little pink up where her nose is. I am a little shy here of the arm with the background, so I can just go in now and just get that in there. So if you see any little bits you have to kind of correct as you go, easy enough to do. I'm just trying to keep sort of a swirly stroke even back there. All right. So I'll put that aside. And again, any questions, just put them in the comments because I've got you right there and I can watch them. Drying pretty quickly. I'll go ahead and put my second coat. Even my second coat, I'm still going to really kind of see those features through. So don't worry too much about that. A little bit of her ears are showing through. And I'll just get this last coat. I think 2 is going to be plenty, and with the shading and the little blushed cheeks we'll give her. We'll paint a little belly button in, but if you're going to put a little jewel, you can just glue that right on. You don't really have to even glue it. It's just with that sticky back jewels, they work fine without even gluing them on. Okay, I'm going to go in with my littler brush now, a little more detailed brush. It's just a little round synthetic, just because it's a little smaller there with her little hand and her thumb. So I am going in with the smaller brush now, along here on her arm. And it looks a little dark under here. So let me do that. And this one arm here. Okay. Now, I almost don't mind working while it's a little wet for that shading. And I'm going to shade, I'm taking a little bit of this burnt sienna and just pull it in with my flesh. I'm just getting a little darker shade of flesh. It doesn't have to be very drastic. I just want a little bit darker. So I've just mixed a little of the burnt sienna in with my, flesh. And there would be a little bit of a shadow under the hairline, right? So I'm putting that in as a line, but I don't want it to look like a line. So all I'm going to do, take that same brush, dry off the brush. This paint is still wet. With that dry brush, I'm just going to smush that so it's a soft line. So all I did was, on top of the flesh that was a little wet, I put a little line of burnt sienna, dried off my brush, so I could use just the brush to blend, and I just softened that. There would also be a little shadow under her chin. So the same thing. It's just a little line, but that would look a little bit, I don't know, cartoony. I want to have a little bit of a nicer look, so I'm just softening it. We could soften, actually on my finished one, I don't really see her ears that much, but this one has ears, so it could almost be a little shadow there. Let's do maybe a little shadow here where her eyebrows are going to go. And every time you put some paint on, just dry off the brush and use it just to soften. I'm going to do cheeks more pinky and her nose more pinky, but we will give her a shadow around these starfish. Now, because the paint has pretty much dried and I want to get that nice blend, I'm just going to quickly re-wet just the areas with the flesh that I know I'm going to want to blend into. It just makes it so much easier to get that soft blend. I've pretty much just done a little bit of flesh around the starfish so that I can now take that little darker mixture, paint just right around it. It just gives it a nice, little more realistic look if she does some shading and highlights. So there I have, it's just, see, it's very roughly outlined, but if we work quick enough and just dry that off, we can just soften it. This is a good little technique for so many things that we paint. I'll show you some techniques as we go sometimes too, where you would just have dry paint and just do a wash, but I really like the way this works for what we're doing. Just gives it some dimension. Little shadow along here, same thing. The flesh is drying. We couldn't possibly work fast enough for us to have it to be able to still be blended. So I'm just going up against that line where the shadow will go with the flesh, back into my darker color. I've made the line. And now you won't know sometimes till you put the line on, because I can barely see this side of it. So I'm going to go back now with that dark and just add a little more burnt sienna so I can get a little bit more of a dark. And again, just the dry brush. When I'm dry brushing something like that from a light into a dark, I am taking my brush and I'm sort of straddling where the flesh is wet and where the burnt sienna is lined and going over it that way. So the brush is half on the darker, half on the flesh, half on the darker. And I just give it a little brush and it blends beautifully. I did a shadow on the inside of her arms. So I'm just quickly re-wetting the flesh. Taking my dark. I'm just going along the inside of her arm. I'm painting upside down, sideways half the time. And drying off my brush and just softening. It's just a quick little technique, but it just adds so much. So now, because I have some shadows, I want to do some light areas too. So I'm going to maybe just go in, put some flesh in the middle of her belly, maybe up here. I'm going to quickly do the same thing I was doing with my little brush. I'm taking a little white, dry brushing it, right? Well, not really dry brushing, the paint is wet there. And drying off the brush and just softening it. So I put some white strokes just in the middle of her belly and just softened it. I've re-wet this a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of the, can you see how it's starting to give it some dimension? So I'm just on top of the wet flesh, I'm just putting in some of the white. I think I would even do that along the outside of the arm. This arm is still a little wet. So I can just sort of get a little bit of a lighter edge on the outside of that arm. This is something you'll need to practice a little bit, so don't get discouraged if it's not blending is nice for you. The trick is to have the paint underneath wet, and as you go along and practice this a little more, it'll come and you'll be able to do that pretty easily and quickly. So same with her face. I want to re-wet some of the flesh because I'm actually going to give her some blush too. But I want to get a little bit of light just along the edge of her face on the bottom. And this is the hardest part. This is the most detail just on her little body. So the rest will go pretty quickly and easily, and the hair is so much fun. But I wanted to show you really how to blend features on a face. And faces aren't the easiest thing, but where it's traced on, you have the proportions and everything. It's just a matter of getting some lights and darks. She looks a little too light there now. So it really is, I'm even have to go back and forth and play with it. It doesn't come out perfect for me either. I think the middle of her forehead's a little lighter. So what do? We just wet it with some flesh. Throw some white in there. Just rough as that. And then with the dry brush, soften it so it doesn't look like just a big white blob. I am going to, and it's funny because in the camera, so if you think you have a mistake or something's wonky, take a picture of it or hold it in the mirror. Because when I'm doing the painting here like this on the video, I see so much more than I do on the canvas here. I can see this being a very harsh line there. And to me, it looked blended. So I am just going to lightly dry brush a little bit of flesh back in there. All right, so I think I've got lights and darks enough. I want to give her little cheeks a little blush, and I am going to do a little of that on her nose. So that's when a little of this red will come in. So a little of the red with that flesh colored. So you get a little bit of a pinky flesh color. And again, this is a part where until I put it on her face, I can't tell if it's too bright or not bright enough. So I'm going to go jump right in and just do some cheeks. And I'm going to hold this closer up to the camera for you in a second. So just some cheeks there. I might just take a little of this to blend if it needs it. I kind of like them sticking. I kind of like them, so that you see them more. And that same tone, I'm going to put down her nose. So it's a little bit of a blush color on her nose. I want a little light spot on the end, and because I just did it, it is wet. I'm going to put a little white there. I just want her nose to pop off her face and not look like really flat. It's a little too white. I'm going to tone it down with a little flesh color. Okay. There. The rest will come with the outlining. And how are you guys doing? I know some are watching, but if you're painting, if you're having any trouble, let me know. I'm going to put the white of her eyes in now. I think she really needs a face. We could go and paint the whole thing, but let's put the face in first because then she's got a little personality and it's really more fun if she's got her eyes and her features. So it's just an almond shape for the white. The whole eye is painted in white first. Then we will put the iris and the pupil in. It's just a little almond shape. You should be able to see it tracing through there. And she looks a little zombie-like now. She's kind of got that blank stare. I want to let that dry and put 2 coats. So in the meantime, I'm going to take some red and a little white because I don't want her to have that bright of lips. And this is the little shape of her mouth. It's just the top lip and a little bottom lip. It's just hardly anything. It's just a little shape. It's a little shape like, I'm going to highlight it with some white, but it's a little shape like this, like a little M almost for the top, and then just a little underneath. And what I did was a little tiny bit of white, usually a little highlight on the bottom lip. And I did drag a little white. Oops, sorry, you got her. So there, it's just a little, see that little highlight in the bottom lip? Whatever I'm painting, I do that little highlight, and it really just makes the bottom lip come forward kind of, and it just kind of looks cool. And another coat of white before we put her eyes. I made blue eyes. You can use any color eyes you want to do. And that's going to dry before we go ahead and put the iris in. She needs a couple little eyebrows. I'm going to use the burnt sienna for that. And because it's a detail, when I do details, I add a little bit of water to my paint and thin it down. I want it to be more like ink. You guys have heard this before, I'm sure. A little more like ink than paint, especially if it's been sitting out for a little while. We're going to use these little comma stroke for her eyebrows. And I'll show those to you too. Well, let me put them on here. But it's a stroke like this. I can do it on the back maybe. I just take my little fine detail brush. My paint is watered down a little bit. I just press my brush a little bit and then pull it off the canvas to get that little shape. I want to try it so you can see. Press the brush a little bit, and as you're making that little curve, you're pulling that brush right off. That's why it's thin. It's not because I have some magic talent and I can make thin lines. Press the brush down, take the brush right off the canvas. You automatically get a little thin line. It's just a little practice, but you can do that as well. I'm going to, I took a little bit, I've got that little burnt sienna on my brush still, but I'm going to go right into my red. For some reason, I think I did the outline of her nose a little bit burnt sienna and a little red. I don't want to get too complicated because it's not a real realistic portrait, but I just want to go down and just give the, so I've got the left side of the nose and underneath just a little line. I think I put that little line also to divide her top lip from her bottom. That's getting a little picky. It's not necessary, but if you want to, you can just do a little line under there. It throws a little shadow under the top lip onto the bottom lip. And I do like to give her little blush a little highlight too. So I'm going to just take a little bit of white, and it's kind of watery. I'm just putting it on here. And with my dry brush, I'm just scooting it off. I just wanted it a little brighter in on her cheeks here and there. And now we need eyes because she's freaking me out with the crazy stare. I did I'll take a little daub of my dark blue over here and mix it with the light. I don't want it too dark. And it just circles right in the middle of her eye. And you can just, and I'm just, what I'm doing, how I'm making those is I'm just putting my brush right in the middle and circling it out until I get to the size I like. My background is a little wet, so it's not making as nice of a little circle as I'd like. So I may just have to let that dry a little bit. But you get the idea. I'm going to let it dry because otherwise I'm dragging in the white and it's got kind of a weird shape to it. So let's let that dry a little bit and base coat her hair in. I think at this point I'm going to work up, down, so that I'm not putting my hand in it when I'm painting here. So why don't we do the hair and then move down to the tail. I'm going to do mine that same color, I think. So I'm going to start with, I always go dark to light. Whatever color hair you want to do, just start with the darkest shade. In my case, it's going to be this burnt sienna. I'm using my flat brush because I think that'll be the easiest to fill this in. And I'm just going to go around her face. This would be cute too, wouldn't it be, if you painted some little jellyfish around her or some other little sea creatures. Little seahorses would be cool. And I'm just going to go around her first, then I'll work my way out, and then we can get some nice little curly cues and whatnot. And it doesn't need a second coat. We're just going to do one coat. I think the little bit of transparency kind of works. It makes it look a little like hair. And remember, I did blue where the hair should be, so I'm going to go underneath her arm there too and do a little bit. Because the blue's underneath, it's going to be a little tougher to cover, but it'll work out in the end. It's no big deal. I'll just get a little of the lighter in there to make it show up a little bit. And once that dries, we'll be fine. And it is coming along. She's got quite a head of hair here. It looks like 80s hair. It can be kind of rough out here because we're going to just put all the little strands coming off, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It could just be a little rougher. This was a popular painting in my in-person classes. We did this quite a few times. All right. That's a good start on that side. Let's finish this side. I think I did these little curls coming up like this. There. And then I'm going to fix those eyes because now they're not just zombie eyes. They're staring at me. Like those eyes that follow you where you go. Okay, we've got hair in here. Wait till you see how easy the little scales are to do down there. They're pretty cinchy. Okay. That's a good base coat. We've got the white of the canvas covered, which is good. These little areas that are the blue showing through. Again, if you need to cover anything, sometimes adding a little white to it helps, makes it more opaque, so that when we go back over that with our oranges, it will show up nicely. So let's just get that a little less dark. Okay. All right. So let me go back and finish her eyes so she's not so starey. How are you guys all doing there? Let me know if you're happy with what's happening. And there, let's get her nice little round. And you can exaggerate and make the eyes bigger if you want to. And inside the eyes, you just get a little black pupil and then a little highlight. I always do a little highlight. When you're doing your eyes, you always want a little highlight. Makes the eyes come alive. The trick is, and I will show you in a minute, let me just put the little pupils in. So sometimes I tend to go a little towards the top of the eye with the pupil, but you could do it right in the center or looking up a little bit. Just whatever little thing you want to do. And then when that dries, I'll show you where the little highlights go. I give her just the littlest bit of eyeliner on the top or eyelashes. And because it's super detailed work, again, I thin down the paint. So I'm going to take and add some water to what I have is too much black paint out. And I've watered down that paint over here so it's more like ink. I only give her a top outline. I don't outline the whole eye, then it looks a little bit kind of crazy. So I'm going to just go to the top of the eye. And I'll give her eyelashes in a minute. You can, or you can leave it like this if you want, but let me just show you what that looks like. So I'm just giving a little, very thin line just on the tops. And then you can give her a few little eyelashes if you want. Don't go too crazy there. She'll look a little too made up. But I'm just going to, from the eyelash out, just a few little strokes on each side. And again, this is up to your own preference if you want to. And there we are with just a few little eyelashes. And then the little highlight still is wet. So let's leave that go for a minute. And while we're waiting for the hair to finish drying, I'm going to do her little starfish with that yellow ochre color to start. Just that dark goldy color. I'm going to use my round brush because it will be a little easier to do the little points of the star. This is going to take a few coats too because that is a little transparent. But we're going to shade it. We're going to add some little dots, give it that starfish texture. You can see how transparent it is right now, but we'll get more on our second coat. I'm glad you guys are joining me tonight. Thank you. It's always nice to have company when I'm painting. Okay, that's one coat to start. Let's just leave that dry. Play around with her hair a little bit. What I do now is I just get different shades. And as I get closer to the front of the hair, I get thinner lines and brighter lines. So I'm going to start with just a bigger round. You can kind of see what that round brush is. It's just a synthetic. That's a 7. And these are going to be wider strokes. And we're going to get finer when we go up. And I just use a variety of colors here. Let's start with some of this orange. And you can see it's pretty thick at this point. So again, I'm going to add just some water to thin it out a little bit. I am going to start at the edges and move in because the way hair grows is the way you're going to paint it. And I'm just going to do some of this. It's very subtle. You don't see it very much. It's just a start to build up. And I'm just using little curve strokes if you want. Any which way. Just think hair and work your way up. I do lots of little curly cues if you want. You can get pretty crazy and wild. You see I'm making those little wiggly strokes. But again, they're a little thicker. We'll get finer later. If you want some out here curling, you can do that. You can really go to town. And can you see you still have a little bit of your dark showing through. So I don't want to cover the dark burnt sienna underneath altogether. So you're going to leave some of that showing. And we'll start down here. And I really did get all just kind of crazy, wiggly, round, curvy strokes. It could be wiggly and then curved. And you can see it's already starting to look like hair, just with that first color. And sometimes I'm always doing little curls like this towards the other outside. Don't feel like you have to do them all that way. Do some that are a little different. Here, it's going to be kind of coming like this, a little part under here, up here. Okay, so that's good enough for the first go round. All we had was the burnt sienna behind. Then we went with a little bit of orange on top. And can you see on the finished one what we're building up to? We're building up to these few very light thin ones on top. All right, I gotta get those little tiny dots on her eyes. So I'm taking just a little tiny brush, a little bit of white paint. And when you're doing highlights in the eyes, if you're gonna do it at say like 2 o'clock, before I get orange on her face, I need a place to set my finger down. I just do a little dot, say at 2 o'clock. The other eye would be the same at 2 o'clock. You don't want to do 2 o'clock and 11 because she'll be Marty Feldman-ish, kind of looking all crazy. So I think that's pretty much all we need for her face. Her mouth's looking a little weird there to me, like it's off to the side. I'm going to, it's off center. Let me just kind of center it a tiny bit, and then we'll work on her starfish there. Because I'm painting sideways probably, or who knows what. And maybe no one would even notice, but she does look, her nose is not centered over her mouth. So let me kind of give her a little plastic surgery here for a minute. Little Botox or something. Oh my goodness, it really was off. All right, I'm just going to sort of fill in some flesh, and I'm going to have to come back and work on that in a minute. Okay, another coat of the gold. Let me grab a sip of water. It's still pretty warm here. And I'm just going to do another coat. And then we're going to put some darks and lights. Let me show you some darks on one side. Oh. It looks like I lost my camera. Hang on, let me just get my camera back in place up top. And if it has, there's been a little trouble with the battery today, but if it has a battery issue, I'll go grab another camera. So bear with me for a moment, and we'll get the camera back on the painting, because it's not going to really do much if you can't see what I'm doing. And I was worried a little bit about the battery tonight, so let's just see. Now, sometimes when the call comes in, it kind of gets disconnected. So let me just put myself back on line here. Okay. Here we go. Let's try this again. There we are. And upside down as normal. I am the upside down painter, you know. And you don't need to see a big me. Let's swap these. Okay. I don't think we missed much, right? Let me know, you guys, if you can see both of them again. So if you can see what I'm painting there too. And I'm just doing that second coat of the gold here. So fill that in and let me know if you can see okay and hear okay. Okay. So now I'm going to shade on one side with the brown. And actually that burnt sienna is nice brown, but I want to use more of a brown, a darker brown for that shading. So let me just grab it. Okay. Just a little bit of brown, like a burnt umber would work. And I'm going to just go into the right side. Again, just like we did before, I'm painting on top of the wet paint with the darker color. Dry off my brush. Soften. Right, just for that one right side is a little darker. And I'm going to do a little lighter on the left side. And I don't see any comments lately from you guys. So either you're working very hard or there might be an issue with the comment. So if anyone can, throw a comment in there just so I know that you guys can still see me and comment. A little bit of the white on the left side. Again, it's on the wet paint. And I'm going to just soften that. And can you see it gives a dimension now? It's a little light. Oh, good, Karen. Hi. Thank you. I just sometimes, I know with the storms we've got going on here and whatnot, I just don't want to lose everybody. So you can see it's a little light on one side and a little dark on one. It's going to lighten up a little bit when I take just white on this brush. And I'm just going to dab it and dot it. Gives it that little texture of the starfish. And because it looks a little dark on the camera here to the right side, I'm going to dot on some of just the gold, a little white, just And I think it just needs a little bit of burnt sienna too still. I just kind of like the way that shaded a little bit. Okay, so I think that's just enough what we need for her little starfish. You can make them bigger or smaller, or, you know, sometimes the starfish are nice in that pink color too. But with her color hair, I like that gold. And we're going to go back and finish the little details on her hair. Painting like wild hair, Janet. Gave black eyebrows by mistake. Should be brown. I did black. I did black on mine. Oh, eyebrows, brown. Yeah, you know what you can do is you can just paint over it with flesh a couple times. You'll still see the black through, but you can just go over with your brown then or your burnt sienna. So just go over it with flesh a little bit. Liner brush to use for the detail on that. I use, let me see, this little tiny brush here is a double aught. So it's a 2-0. It's a little thin. Actually, you know what happened? I was up in Maine. I forgot all my brushes. I did a class for you guys. And so I ran to Dollar Tree and bought a set of brushes, which came with like all kinds of brushes. And they're pretty decent. Like this little liner is a pretty good little liner. So a double aught or a triple aught, something tiny like that would be good for your detail. I don't think I'll go that small for the hair though. You'd hardly get enough paint on there. And I misplaced my liner brush. So a liner brush would be nice too for the hair here. I'm just going to use, this is a size 3 round over here. Paint really thin though. Now, I want it to show up, so I need to go a little lighter than what we used. So I'm using that same orange, but let's just add some white to it. And I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to thin it down. I'm going to add, I think I added a little yellow instead. That's looking very peachy to me. Let's try a little yellow with the orange first. Let's try a little bit on the corner here. This is just a cad yellow, primary yellow. And I think I'm going to like that a little better with a little white. So I lightened it up with a little yellow. It's a little bit a lighter orange, and then I'll get some little white. Can you see the difference? It's not, it's kind of a nicer, brighter orange than the dollar pastel. So I do need to thin it out. Same thing. We are going to go from the edge and work our way up. Just like the hair would grow. Same when we do grasses, we go in the direction it would grow. And just lighter touch. So it's not like magic that you can't paint with thin lines. It's just a lighter touch. And I'm just doing the same sorts of strokes, only thinner. Some come in curl, but they don't have to all. Some could just be a little wavy. And I think it's going to work better if I vary it. Instead of having all real thin strokes right now, I still want to do some that are a little thicker. So with the brush, the detail brush, you can start a little bit of hair, a light stroke. It's light, press down. It's a little heavier, lighten up, and it's light again. Can you see how this adds an interesting look to it? A little bit light, press, thin, thick. Thin and thick. Nice with grasses too that way, so they look natural and they're not all perfect. This was looking a little to me like it was just too perfect, so I'm going to do some thin, some thick, some curled, some not. I like to put a lot now that are coming out right over the edge of what we have here and are kind of on their own. And up here, they're just more wiggly. They're just more wiggly up there. You can have some that curl, but I just did a lot of wiggly ones. I'm going a little bit into that peachy color too now sometimes, just to get a different tone. To keep things interesting, it's just lights, darks, change the shade, change the shapes. Makes it real interesting for your eye to move around a painting instead of having it all routine or the same. So you can see I can do some that are curled and some that are just wiggly. And you can go as crazy or as simple as you want when you're finishing these bits of her hair. These are more yellowy. I'm going to go back and do some more peachy ones, but I want to get some of this color in here. So if you were doing, like I said, the blonde hair, you'd start with this darker shade. And then you could mix that with a little white for some of these. You could mix a little of this in the yellow and white and get just some brighter yellows. And just eyeball it as you go. It's your own little creation. It's your own mermaid. No one's to say what color hair her should be or shouldn't be. And can you see how I'm getting some thicker and some thinner, and that is kind of nice. And I just want different tones, that's all. So now I'm getting a little lighter. And see if I have any other shades of orange around. This is kind of a salmony, it's coral blush. I'm gonna try that. I want some different shades in there. Pull up whatever you have that you might want to try. This is very pinky. It's almost flesh colored, but let me see what it looks like, because it might be a cool color. Yeah, I do like it actually. Just here and there. Just add something a little different. Every time I do a painting, it's different. Like I said, I couldn't do it the same if I tried. And if you want to come out over the edge and make some of these, I like the way that looks too. And again, I could go on and get too detailed and crazy, but I think that's probably good. And that's the hair. And you can see I made a little mistake here. I want to smudge the orange on that canvas. If it was wet, you could just take a little wet paper towel and pull it off. You could always go over it with your blue. If you ever have paint stuck like that somewhere you really can't get off, rubbing alcohol will remove it. So I'm just going to touch it up with some of the blue that we were using for the background, and it'll be fine. But just some ideas of how to fix things when they go awry sometimes. And I'm always putting my hand down somewhere I shouldn't. So I think I'm going to call that done for my hair. It's just pretty stringy, but you can see we started dark with just a little lighter shade lighter, hardly noticeable, thicker and thin strokes, and then worked our way up to thin lines that were much lighter. Always adding white to whatever color you're using. If you're doing the blonde, more and more white for these top little strands. Brown, same thing. And like I said, with the black, you would do black, but mix some black and blue and then highlight with some black. It would look really nice. It would pop. Okay, so we could give her a little belly button so you know where that's going to be, and you can always put a jewel, but you can just put a little burnt sienna, and she just gets a little belly button. It's not anything fancy. It's just a little belly button. She'd be cute with freckles. You could put little freckles on her nose, couldn't you? Let's do her with freckles. Now, freckles, you don't want them to be jumping out like bright spots. So you wouldn't go with just your straight brown. I took the burnt sienna and put a lot of water in it. So it's very watered down and you hardly see them. If you did it with straight paint, they would be sticking out too much. So now we are going to base coat the whole tail in our dark green. That's a phthalo green. Whatever green you have, it's a blue green, this one is. But whatever green you might have, just base it in. This is very see-through. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's pretty see-through, but that's okay. I'm just going to base in the white tail. If you'd like, you don't have to do perfect edges along here. I just kind of do them kind of rough because they're almost like little scales. So you don't need to waste the time doing a perfect edge. Just make it the slightest bit bumpy. And even the tail, we're going to do just start it all with this green for now. And just cover up that white. Can you see I'm working a little harder to paint this in because I'm using that synthetic brush? I have to really poke it in a little bit to these little nooks and crannies. That's kind of why I like that bristly brush. Sometimes it digs right into the canvas for me without even trying. This goes behind her really, but we'll just paint that in. And I'm finding little bits of white that I missed. You can't see it from there, but you can see little bits of white that I missed with the blue. don't worry about that sort of thing. You can go back and touch that up with the blue that you used for the background. There's always little touch-ups that you can do afterwards. I put some lime greens and light blues and some purples in her tail. It's sort of shimmery. You could put whatever colors in there you want. You could put some golds or yellows. So feel free to play around and not always have to do it exactly how I do it. Experiment a little bit if you have some favorite colors. Okay, so now we've covered that up. And that's a good start. She's already looking mermaidy. Oh, let me let that dry for 1 second, and I'll show you guys the paintings I talked about earlier. Let's let that dry for a second. So this is the painting that I did, the video I did today to upload tomorrow to the Cardist group. It is a little 4th of July flip-flop painting. It's super simple. I think it took about 38 minutes maybe, so I've recorded it. I'll put it up tomorrow for you. Just a little red stripe and some white and blue, and then these 4th of July stars and stripes flip-flops. So I thought that might be fun, and if you painted Uncle Sam, it would maybe make a nice piece to go with it. And my other thing I'm working on, I don't know if anybody else is a Frida fan, but, oh, thanks, Janet. I'm working on, I love these, you know, I love these rectangular canvases. So I'm working on a Frida Mermaid. I have a little trivet in my camper that I keep looking at, and I got it done in, where did I get it? San Diego. And it has the Frida as the mermaid. And so I've kind of taken a little take off of that. So I'll have with the heart, with the wings, we'll do some flowers in her hair, maybe some earrings and some flowers around her neck and a cool tail. So if anyone is a Frida Kahlo fan, we will have that pretty soon. So I think it'll be kind of fun. Okay, let's do her tail first. It's pretty easy peasy. I'm going back to this, not my real super fine detail brush, but just my little number, what was it, 3. And I'm going to go into this lime green. Now, if you don't have lime green, it's no worries. I really didn't have to be lazy and put lime green out, because if you just mix this green with this, you know, primary yellow, you get a beautiful lime green. But I put all that lime green out, so I'll just go into it. Thin it down a little bit. Again, this paint's been sitting out a little bit. How long have we been painting? A little over an hour. So that paint's been sitting out, and I want it to be thinner and do details with it. So I'm going to just thin that out. I'm going to work towards the tail, just the same idea where the hair grows. I want it to be thinner bits here, and so I'm just going to really just follow the shape of that tail. I got a little curve on the edge, a little straight in the middle, and a little curve there. Let me come closer to the camera so you can see it, but it's really not a whole lot. You've got some little lines straight here, and they curve this way, and I'm just getting a little of lime green on top of that dark green. I'm going to go back and forth now. I'm going to go right into my dark again, make some dark. They're like little fins, little tail fins. I'm working from the bottom. I'm working upside down, but the bottom out. I want some dark areas, and then I want to go back and just get some light in there. And I think I might be better off if I just take some straight yellow. Let's try that and see what it's like when it just mixes with the green that's on the, okay, yellow's notoriously transparent. It's hardly showing. We need white to make it a little more opaque. And I gotta do it upside down, sorry. And curve, yeah, that's what does it. Okay, the yellow and some white. Can you see how it's really popping a little more now? Curved on the edge, straight, and curved again. Again, it doesn't have to stay right within what we painted. It could go right on the edge. It's just a little bit of lights and darks. I go back and forth till I like it. I like those lights a lot now. I might just throw a little few darks in. If you have a trouble sometimes and your dark is not getting dark enough, you can just mix some of that green with some of that ultramarine blue we had before, and you get a nice, deep, beautiful sea green, sea blue dark. And that's all you need for that little fin. Oh, Linda, that's funny. I love it. Frida roam. Yeah, I you know, seeing more and more Frida things now. It's kind of like she's so iconic, and but I just thought as a mermaid, so I'm gonna play around with that. Next time I'm at the beach, I'll play around with working on that. Okay, so we've got the little tail done. So you can see it's just got some lights and darks. I know because it's wet, it's a little shiny on the camera, but when it dries, you'll see a little bit. And we can go back and lighten some of those up with more white. So the scales, the way I want to work those is from the bottom up so that they lay properly. If we started here, just like when we do grasses sometimes, you started here and you worked your way up, you're going to cut off everything that you did. So I want a brush that is sort of the shape of these little scales. Can you see it's kind of, they're just like little brush strokes. That's why I sometimes like these filbert brushes. I'm going to see if I have an even smaller one. And you know, you can get the synthetic brushes in a filbert too. See, that's a rounded. It's not quite a square. It's a little bit rounded. I might have one of those in a smaller size. I just want that roundy shape. And I think I'll go with this one here because it's about the right size. So it's just that bristly brush in the filbert. Now, don't fear if you only have little squares or rounds, you can still do it. It's not a big deal. You could use a smaller square. You could use your round brush if you needed to. I'll do a few with each so you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a variety of the lighter colors, and I'm going to build up. I'm going to do some in one color all the way up, then I'll come back with a few others. Let's go with this lighter green to start. And can you see I'm taking the brush? I'm going to show you actually on the back. I'm taking the brush and I'm sort of just making little, this is very dry on here, but I'm just making little, I'm going to build my little scales up as I go. It's a little press and pull, press and pull. And I'm going to do them in just this color to begin with, then I'm going to vary it up a little bit. I'm not going any rhyme or reason. I'm not worrying about staying right within the green that we painted. I almost want it to come out over it a little bit, over the edge. So just little bits at a time, press it and pull it. Sometimes you might want to, you have a row of these and you might want to go in between them a little bit. And again, go right over the edge sometimes. Gets a little tricky on the curve, but just kind of go with it. Just follow the shape. See how I'm curving them now a little bit? And if it helps, you can turn her upside down. I sometimes am easy with pulling those strokes towards me. And so I have a row, right, for instance. So try now to go in between the ones you just made so they're not lined up as perfect little soldiers. Now, I know this stands out pretty bright. We're going to go back and forth with other colors. I'm going to make it a little more subtle. But this is how I start. I just get some on there. And load your brush and do as many as you can, letting some be really thin as the paint wears off your brush. And I like the texture of, you know, keeping it over the edge a little bit. And at the end, we're going to do this little line, so don't worry about bringing them right up. That's good enough. Now I want to just use my different colors. I'm going to go in and do some of these same green. I'm just adding a little white to it. I'll add a few white. And now I'm not really worried about going in between every little stroke I made. I'm just going to randomly do it. So some are going to be in between and some are going to be right on top and some are going to cover the previous ones up. But just a little white to that same green, and just the quicker you work, probably the better, because then you're not fussing and trying to get it just so. And can you see now there's hardly any paint on the brush towards the end? And I like the way that sort of gives you some texture. It drags on that, the nooks and crannies of the canvas, and it gives you some cool texture. And then we're going to add all the other little shades just to add something to it, and we'll get some glitter on there too. I can even, if you want to see what some darks look like, throw a few darks back in there. If we've lost too much, I still see quite a bit of dark, but I'm going to throw some in. And it's layer upon layer. I'm working wet on wet. And I'm just going to dry off my paintbrush, and I'm going to wash it in between. I really like putting some blue ones. This is just a very light blue paint. Again, I was being lazy and took it out of the jar. If we had used our ultramarine and white, you'd get the same shade. So you don't need all these colors I put out. I'm just laying in a few light blue ones here and there. I'm even going to go back and put a little bit of light blue in the tail too, on the end of the tail. No rhyme or reason. I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm just throwing them on there. And I like to even put a little purple. I just keep thinking of, like, you know how sometimes the fish scales are sort of shiny and you sort of get a little bit of a rainbow effect, different colors. There's no reason why you couldn't go in with some yellow if you wanted. I think I lost, the light blue is looking a little bit just like white to me. So I'm going to go back onto my other palette. I had some turquoise on there that I kind of liked. I'm going to see if I like any of that in there. Yeah, I love that. Turquoise. Turquoise is doing the trick. And then we'll get some glitter on there. So I want to add a little bit of the colors that we've got going on here in the tail a little bit. So I am just going to go and just brush just some of those light blues, the turquoise, a little purple maybe. I'll put it up close in just a sec so you can see it. Get that purple in there. And you see, it just looks a little more interesting. I really like that light green that I got for a little bit there. Kind of yellowy. Okay, so you can see the little tail now has some blues and purples in it. And the only thing I would add to her, unless you guys think it needs anything, let me know. I think I would just add some of that cool twinkly glitter. It might not show on the camera as much, but for this painting, it's kind of a fun addition. Only on her tail. And it looks just like glitter, but it's clear. It's kind of like a glue almost. And let's see if I can get some of this out of the bottle. I like to use every little last bit up. And there's all kinds of this glitter, but they're usually in colors. This one is going to dry. It's like it's not called crystal, but it's crystal. Sorry, it is crystal, and it just is going to dry clear with some glitter. So let's let that dry 1 second. Although I did swirl some on the background here and there. I'm just using little spiral-y strokes. I'm going to put it on, and then I'm going to see if you can see it if I hold it up closer to the canvas. Some paintings don't need glitter, but this one clearly does. And let me see if you can see that. Yep, you can kind of see it. See, it's a little bit of glitter, but it's subtle. It's not like too much. And that's exactly what I would do on her tail. Oh, you know, before that, her tail gets just 2 little finishing touches. Hang on. Back to this brush. Back to the light green. And all it does is get these 2 little comma strokes here. Just a little heavier, and I'm going a little thin. And it's just a little that. And now we'll add some glitter. And then we're pretty much done. So let me know what you think, how you like her, how you like yours. If you have any questions about when you're going to paint yours. And again, as you're painting, send me a message or post on Facebook, and I'm right there. I will answer it as you're going. I don't want you to get stuck and get frustrated. I am here to walk you through anything you need, even if it's after the class. Okay. I'm so happy to find this because for, during the pandemic when there was no paints to be had anywhere, it seemed this little twinkle stuff was impossible to get. And I liked it for my Christmas trees and my ceramics last year. It was so hard to find. So I saw some, so I bought a bunch. And I just dab on any which way. It's like I said, it's going to dry clear. I'll put some on the tail too. This would be a great little painting for the little girl in your life. You could personalize it with a name, certainly. I'll show you a quick, easy way to do that if you wish. Writing or detail with a paint marker. And that's all. I didn't cover the whole thing. You could, but I did just kind of dab it on. And just gives it a little pizzazz. So, markers, paint markers. I took one out earlier when I was painting those flip-flops. Let me see if I can find it. This is the black one, but there are white ones as well. Oh, yeah, there it is. So, these are Posca brand, but you could use whatever brand you have or want. I think there's some at Michael's in different places. What's nice about these is, unlike a Sharpie, which, would work for some black outlining or signing your name, these actually have paint in them. So you need to mix up the paint, and then you could write, even if it's just for signing your name and things, because it comes in a narrower, a thinner line, fine line, and the heavier ones, multitude of colors. And it's pretty cool because you can just, let's see if I can get where you can see me here. You could sign your paintings in it if you want. You could do detail. But it's just, you're writing. So I know people sometimes are more comfortable just writing than with the brush at first, but they're kind of cool. You can just you could add detail with it. You could write the kids' names, whatever you want to do. Paint markers, they're kind of fun to add a few to your kit. So, all right, how is everybody doing? I think I am done. And if you guys have any questions, like I said, you can certainly just put them in the comments or just send me a message anytime, email, whatever it takes. I had fun painting with you guys tonight, so thank you for joining. And for my Cardist group, thank you guys for joining me in this little journey. And your calendar will be out tomorrow. The flip-flop painting will be out tomorrow. And if you have any suggestions, I am open to them. What is this? Oh, this is my earbud. I have to plug my earbuds into my phone so it doesn't have all that feedback. So anyways, I kept you long enough. Thank you, and I will see you soon. Happy painting. Bye, guys.